So, welcome Roman to the Lisa podcast. On the podcast, we talk about all things addiction. So, if you wouldn't mind just sort of kicking us off a bit about your story and how you got to where you are today.
So maybe unlike many guests in your podcast, I want to be talking about video game addiction, which doesn't sound so as bad as heroin addiction, alcohol addiction. It isn't, but it's very psychologically interesting to me. And I've been playing video games since I was very young, and I think it wasted maybe half of my childhood. And well into my early 20s, I was still playing them, and even when I had very concrete important goals to accomplish, I still couldn't break the cycle of binging on video games for weeks or up to a month. And eventually I analyzed psychologically what was going on with me and why I couldn't just stop myself from doing it. And I wrote this book, Addiction, Procrastination, and Laziness. And from my realizations about how I did it and why I was doing it, I was actually still in the middle of writing this book. There were times when for a week, between a week and a month, I would wrote the book for a month and then video game binge for a week or two. And halfway through the book, I'm why don't I apply the thing? Originally, the book was mostly understand why you're addicted, and I'm why don't I apply the concepts from this to quitting? And since the middle of the book, that was maybe 5 years ago, I totally quit any kind of video games, and I haven't played any at all for almost 5 years.
Yeah, that's really cool. And what were some of, or let's start with how would you kind of define addiction? So what would you how did you see that in your mind?
Well, in the book, I showed that pretty much humans are made to get addicted to things. Humans are addicts to pleasure. Pretty much anything that brings pleasure could become addictive. Humans are constantly seeking it out. You can't just sit in a place and do nothing for a while. You're going to want to seek something pleasurable. You're going to want to do something or eat something, just anything that'll bring you just the physical sensation of pleasure. And if you get all that from one source, maybe one very powerful source, like drugs or video games or alcohol, something like that, that's an addiction. But in general, the pleasure, we're addicts to pleasure. So it's not that's how we operate. There's nothing wrong with it. That's how humans seek out what makes us be able to be alive, food, all the things that are good for us, all the things that allow us to survive. We've we've kind of co-evolved with all these things, and the things are made to be pleasurable, food, water. Whenever you something's uncomfortable for you, relieving it is very pleasurable. So that's kind of the control system at the base of our mind. But some things are manufactured to games, gambling, also video games, which are specifically target that, and they could become a serious addiction, which takes most of your time and maybe most of your life.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think some people, when they stop one addiction, for example, it's easy to get addicted to something else. And you said about the pleasure. Would you say people, or would you say in your experience, your focus on pleasure has dispersed, if you like, and spread out among lots of different things, or would you say it switched focus to something else? How did you manage the displacement of the pleasure?
Well, mostly I would say I kind of architected my life. I constructed it to get everything, to get my work and my pleasure all from one source, which was writing. And I was trying to do that, and I kind of enjoy writing. I enjoy the process. I enjoy accomplishing it. I enjoy doing the research and getting the ideas for what to write. And that would be okay if video games didn't exist. So video games are much more pleasurable than that. They're I get some enjoyment from writing, maybe out of a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 3 or a 4. But video games are up there. They're 10. So like if those two are competing with each other, the video games are gonna win out like a good portion of the time. So like the goal what I did was I cut myself off from them altogether using some interesting strategies I'll probably mention here. But the goal was just to not have them in my life and like focus all my pleasure seeking on like one productive thing.
And I'm assuming, based on that context, that you would like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that like video games negatively impacted your life, and then writing would positively impact it. How did that kind of make sense? What was the negative impact on the gaming side, and what was the positive impact you were going towards on the writing side?
Well, the writing side is obviously, it's like my career. It's like what I want to do with my life and what I'm doing successfully. And, you know, that's the one's purpose in life. That's like what you should strive for, and like what people, like happy people generally successfully strive for over like the course of like finding their purpose in life all the way to death. And video games are just a complete waste of time. You only have so much time to live on this world. Like, you know, that's your main limited resource. You have maybe 60 years, like 60 like conscious years. And well, if you're gonna spend like 8 hours a day playing video games, like you're not gonna accomplish all the goals you set for yourself. You're just gonna get into like the video game hole, and you know what, you'll emerge from it in a week and you feel shameful about yourself. Like, oh, what did I do? And then like keep coming back because it's so pleasurable.
Yeah, so there was still quite a lot of shame there. You'd play these video games and then you'd have like a binge on them, and then you'd be like, oh, why did I do that? I needed to do like some writing or something. But yet you'd still go back and binge and like get into that sort of shame cycle.
Yeah, the goal was, so what I wrote in the book about how to control it was to physically change your environment. If you're going to try to psychologically stop yourself from playing video games, like if you do nothing to physically separate yourself from them, they're always like a click away on your computer. Like you could sustain that for weeks, for months, but like you're gonna go back to the video games. With me, it was like an interesting cycle. I didn't drink very often, but sometimes my friends went drinking at a bar or something, and I drink with them, and like sometimes the next day I'd be able to fully write, but sometimes I get like a hangover. Like I couldn't like, you know, after drinking, your brain doesn't work as well. Words don't really come to you. You feel sluggish. So like after a day, I'm like, I may as well take the day off. My brain, like, I'm not gonna get any writing done today anyway. Like, why not just play a video game? Like, you play it for one day, you're gonna want it much more the next day. You play it the next day, you're gonna want it a lot more the third day. And you know, it's a self-perpetuating feedback loop. Like, the more you play it, the more you want it. So like now I tell my friends, and they're often like wide-eyed at this, like, what? I'm like, I would rather like sit in a room and stare at a wall doing nothing than play a video game. Because like, that might be boring and uncomfortable, but like I'm not gonna want. It's not gonna impact the next day. Like the next day, I'll probably be more productive. I'll probably want to write because I just spent a boring, terrible day like staring at the wall or the ceiling. But and like they're about as useful. You're not gonna like. I mean, there's some like educational games, but mostly what people are playing are like Counter-Strike and Zelda and Pokemon and shit. So you're not gonna gain anything physically from it. It's about the contribution to your life is about like staring at a wall. So like I would take the displeasure like any day over like having the addiction or like the pleasure seeking from video games creep into the next day and maybe like fall into a video game hole for a month.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I would agree. I replaced my TV and Xbox in my room for a library, and now I have a library there. So rather than having that temptation, I did change my physical environment. But what was interesting that you said then is the point about your like the trigger. So for example, you feel hungover, like the Xbox is perhaps sitting there, you don't want to write, so then you start playing one day, and then the cycle starts itself, and you start like that binge process. Would you say like you started to recognise those triggers and like reprogram them? How would you say that bit works?
Well, it's more like a chain of events than a trigger. It's not like being hungover really made me want to play video games, just made me unable to do like what I could do instead. So I started. And how I changed, the way I changed my environment, similar to like replacing my like my Xbox. I never had an Xbox. I just played like computer games like Counter-Strike, and there's all these like video game sites online with like these petty little games, but like those are just as addictive. Like they make really complex video games these days, like extremely complex from like the most simple thing, like Candy Crush, or like there was like this Flappy Bird game where like you just tap and the bird goes. Like those are equally addicting to like Counter-Strike and Mass Effect and like all the most sophisticated things people like make, like some billions of dollars to get people to play these games. But really just about anything could just be extremely addictive. And the way I changed my environment is, so I worked from my computer and I played video games from my computer. And at that point, when it's a click away, that is a recipe for disaster. When you could just click over to another window, like here's your writing, right? Here's your work. Doing something productive here, and always right here at the very bottom of your screen, you could like switch to just a completely mindless like vacuum of playing video games. You're going to do it. Like if you get like it's proportional to how easy it is to start. So like the motivation you need for it is as proportional to how easy it is to start. So if you're just a little bit annoyed at writing, like let's say you can't find a word. You know, you're looking for a synonym and you can't find it. And then, like, well, you could look at the synonyms, like, okay, like, or, like, you know, like, you feel some displeasure now, you want to soothe it, you click over to the video game, and, like, suddenly you're just playing it. Like, okay, like, that could last for 10 minutes, right? Like, you last 10 minutes, like, okay, like, you click back, like, now I'm going to write. But, like, you just, like, hit yourself with a huge dose of pleasure. You know, you just, like, whatever you'd spend those 10 minutes on, like, I don't know, catching a Pokemon or something, or like getting to the next level of something, like that's your brain is kind of like, oh, that was really good. Like I don't want to switch to something that's much less pleasurable than that. Like you're gonna write now, like your brain's like, oh, like even if writing is a little enjoyable, like going down from like a very intense pleasure to a low one feels like just the same as doing something like absolutely tedious, like a chore. So then you can't really write anymore. Like what you would need to do is like go for a walk, like reset yourself, go for a walk, take a shower or something, like eat, like, and then maybe come back. But like if you're just gonna try to like sit at the computer, like 10 minutes of video games, maybe 10 minutes or 30 minutes of writing, like all you're gonna do is play the video game. So, well, I had to cleanse my computer. I had to delete I had to block all the sites. I had to uninstall all the games I had installed on there. Later, I got a computer which like I got like as bad a computer as I can. It could handle like Microsoft Word, like maybe some internet browsing, but like no games. It was just too slow. That was one solution. And the thing, when it's a click away, like there's nothing quite as easy to start as like playing a video game when you're already at your computer. Like smoking even requires reaching into your pocket or taking something physically. Drinking requires opening a bottle. Like all kinds of drugs require like at least some effort to take them. But when it's a click away, it takes like some effort and some time. But when it's a click away, like that is faster than any resolutions. It's faster than any habits. It's faster than any thought processes. You don't even have get a thought in before like you instinctively click away from like what you were writing when I couldn't like formulate a sentence to like the game and the other window. Like it takes absolutely no time. You can't your mind can't control that. You physically have to put time and effort, but time also in between you and the video game, because during that time you could have a thought like, wait, am I going to play a video game right now? Like what am I doing? Like I'm sabotaging everything I'm working for. So that's great because even if you try to cultivate habits to not play, if it's half a second away from just doing it, you're gonna do it.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I know what you mean. It is so easy even for me to get distracted on my computer. You said you tried for a while to have a really bad computer that couldn't even handle the video games. I just wondered, what computer you have now, if you have Mac or Windows or any
I still have that computer. That's the one I work on. The one that if I open a video game on it, it'll lag really badly.
Yeah,
Like
and
I didn't install any new stuff on it. That was like 5 years ago. I didn't install anything new on it. I didn't, you know, get any like weird software. Nothing. So it's still mostly like a word processor, and like for that it works really well. And, it didn't get slower. So that's the kind I use.
yeah, that's really cool. And what other like tips and tricks would you be able to like give the audience, perhaps, that would help them sort of manage their time and procrastination and not be so like addicted to games and stuff like that?
Uh, well, one thing would be to like whatever like make it as hard for yourself. Like a lot of like self like motivation and stuff like what I write about in my book is kind of manipulating yourself to like do the things you want and not do the things you don't want. Like kind of treat yourself as like a computer or like as a deterministic kind of robot. Like like if your environment is set up in a certain way, like some portion of the time you're going to like do like the easiest, like most pleasurable things there. So like you have to predict like in the future, like right now maybe I'm disgusted by the idea of playing a video game at all. But in the future, if that option is available, I'm going to like I could predict 100% I'm going to do it. Maybe 99% or something, unless something extreme happens. So like cleanse your environment of anything. Like if you're addicted to video games, like Netflix, like pretty much the same thing. People like binge Netflix for weeks. Like I hear, on all the social media, there's people like, oh my god, I binge watch Netflix for another week. And like, I sometimes send them a link to my book. Like you have to the key there is to delete your Netflix. Like you can't have access to that anymore. Like stop paying them. Like next time you want to like binge watch a season of something, like you're gonna have to go back on Netflix. You're gonna have to like pay them like $20 or $10 a month or whatever they charge, and you're gonna have to consciously make that decision. Consciously make that effort. Pull out your credit card. Type it in, and like as you're doing all that, you're gonna be like, wait, do I really want to do this? And like sometimes you will. Sometimes you'll go through with it anyway. But like I'd say 90% of the time, you wouldn't, get another Netflix account. And like, like after you don't do it for a while, the urge kind of goes away. Like maybe the first day you really want to binge Netflix or watch play a video game, and like you cleanse your environment from it. Like it takes you let's say it takes you like now a second to open Netflix, maybe 5 seconds, or to open a video game, and let's say you increase that to like 10 minutes, like from like let's say you delete like whatever like automatic entering your credit card account into like whatever site you want. Like that'd be a good idea because that's putting time and effort between you and like your addiction. So you increase the time so it takes 10 minutes from getting the card out, punching in the number, or like reinstalling the game, for instance. Like reinstalling Counter-Strike, that takes a lot of time. And like put like an internet blocker if you're playing online games from like Newgrounds or something. Like I used to do that a lot. Newgrounds has some games on it, you could play them. You could play them for days. If you there's like block this site or something, like add-ons to Google Chrome or something. So to play them now, you have to go into like Google Chrome. You have to open like your block thing. You have to like find like the thing you blocked, like unblock it, and be like, all right, so no, that's putting minutes between you and the game. And if you have a computer that if you can't even have any technology could handle the games, even better. Like, what are you gonna do if like your computer physically can't run the game? Are you gonna go buy another computer? Like if your addiction's really intense, like maybe, but chances are you aren't. And if you don't do that for like a week or two, like your like pleasure seeking and like Netflix or the game is really going to fade. Like it's less and less addicting over time. Like that's why quitting stuff like this works, because after time, like your urge for it becomes much less strong, and eventually you won't even have the impulse. Like I don't ever have an impulse to play a game or binge watch Netflix or anything.
Yeah, and what's interesting
After like months.
Yeah, so I like what you're saying about the fact that you have to sort of distance yourself from the pleasure of what the like source you're trying to get. So whether it's like drugs or playing games or whatever that pleasure source is for you, put as much distance between you and that as possible. So there's lots of friction there. So you'd go and seek pleasure somewhere else first,
Yeah.
And you said over time that kind of fades, the need to go back to the old source, if you like. But how would you like say your like sense of identity has changed during that process?
I wouldn't say my sense of identity has changed. I would just say, well, I don't know, my work habits certainly changed, which like is good. You get a lot of confidence from just getting your work done every day in and day out. Just like, I don't know, cranking out like a page or something a day, like that. That gives you like confidence and inspires you to do more. So like,
Yeah.
you don't want to have opposing things. You want to have something that you're doing productively and achieving, and something that's a giant hole. You don't want to like a hole for your time that just you wasted and you feel shameful about it. You don't want to have opposing forces like that in your life, because like when you cut out like the video games and devote yourself only to work and then a little leisure, leisure, hang out with friends, like something that's not just addictive as video games, then that turns into an upward spiral. Like the more you accomplish, the more you want to accomplish. So you could you could work for 16 hours a day and like have like a happy like manic time at it. Whereas if you work like 16 hours one day and play 16 video games 16 hours another day, like all your effort's gonna be like to not like fall into like the useless pleasure and like do something productive at all. Like that's gonna be most of your effort, instead of like now you have free time and you have free like cognitive resources and motivation to like do more. And like the more you do, like the better you feel about yourself. Like the more productive you feel, the more like excited you feel to do similar things, and you can just keep scaling that up. Whereas if you're you're fighting bad impulses and like trying to indulge in the good ones, like you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like you say, to create that consistent path to like building your new future, if you like, through those like pleasure responses from something good and those micro accomplishments, if you like. But in terms of like your book, what other or what's like one of the most interesting things you like about your book, or one of those like golden nuggets that you found most impactful when writing it?
I would say the thing that I used to have a very mind over matter attitude. Like if I don't want to do something, I won't. Like why? Like I could just stop myself from playing games or something else detrimental like that. But kind of like accepting that motivation is kind of thermodynamic. You know about thermodynamics, like in with molecules. It's not like if you have a molecular reaction, like you think like, oh, this will all like all the hydrogen will react with the oxygen and you're gonna get H2O or something. Like actually there's with all the molecules, some of it's going backwards. So some of it is the H2O again converting to like H2 and O2. And that reaction very little. All kinds of reactions. There's and then like temperature and stuff, there's always like molecules going back and forth. So motivation is kind of like that. Like you could increase your motivation, you could really try. You could really try to like quit video games, like really like set your mind to it and like get as much motivation as you can, get like friends supporting you and whatever. And still like that will only decrease like how much your likelihood of playing video games from like let's say 50% a day to like 90% a day or 95. But like 5% of the time, like what's that? Like once in 20 days, you're going to go back to it, and that's might turn into a big downward spiral of just like a binge. So figuring out that like it's not just about like controlling your behavior with your mind. It's about controlling your environment. That your mind will change constantly. You're going to have the impulses for playing the game, fighting other impulses, and your state of mind is going to change often. And sometimes like the impulses to do something negative, to do your detrimental behavior, is going to outweigh like 10x of all your positive impulses to not do it, and you're just going to fall into that hole. But if you change your environment, that's a physical change. Like no matter what happens in your mind, like you can't like physically overcome the fact that like your Xbox just isn't there, like what are you gonna do? Like generate one, like build one, like buying one's tough. You could, but chances are like all the time it takes you to buy, you're gonna have a thought like your again like the positive impulses will outweigh the negative ones. Like geez, you could be in the store about to buy an Xbox, and they're like cash or credit, and you're like fuck, I don't want to buy it, and you go home and like well that's another day you spend not playing video games, and eventually you'll stop even wanting to do it.
So it's almost like not engaging the willpower in a sense. So, like, say you've got a packet of cigarettes in front of you, and you're like, oh, I really don't want one, or I can't have one is the worst statement. I can't have it. You're engaging willpower, and the thing about willpower is it has a time limit. If I'm hanging on like the ledge of a cliff, if you come back in 2 days, I'm not going to be there, and I could have had all the willpower in the world to hang on, but it's not happening. So, like, willpower always has this time limit, but like you say, if you can change your environment, take the cigarettes off the table and put them in the bin when you're in the mood to do so, or throw them out of the house because we can all go through the bin, but throw them out of the house or somewhere else, and then you're not engaging willpower because you don't have that in your environment. Like you say, it's a lot harder then to go out and bring that thing you've removed back into your environment, and that takes a lot more effort. So hopefully we can start seeking pleasure from other places before that sort of comes back in and change that behaviour pattern.
I wanted to add one. Yeah, the willpower thing. Absolutely, you're right. Like, nothing in my book and, like, nothing really I do in my life requires, like, almost any willpower. Like, any just, like, strain yourself. Because, I mean, me personally, like, so I've been skeptical that, like, anybody has this, but, like, it seems that some people do. But, like, all my friends, I live kind of like a monkish lifestyle. It's, like, no like intense pleasures, like mostly work, and then like hanging out with friends and stuff. And my friends are always like wow, you're really like ascetic. I tell them we're like monkish, like totally abstaining from all pleasure. And they say like something that's like it's about willpower. I'm like no, like I have no willpower. Like I am totally free of willpower. It's all about like arranging my life so that just economically it's better to be productive than not to like do things that will benefit me in the future than things that will just give me useless pleasure today.
Yeah, it's almost training your mind not to be so like focused on instant gratification and more on delayed gratification. But which is super interesting. But you also said something like about your friends refer to you kind of like being monkish. I just wondered if you meditate or have any practices like that.
No, just yesterday I was reading a book on like mindfulness and doing meditation, and I've experienced like the mindfulness state like naturally. Like there was a time I had a serious back injury, so I couldn't really like move, and if I walked it was very, very painful. And later when I walked, like when it stopped being painful, I still had to walk at like maybe a third of like how normal people would walk, and like when you like so life was kind of slowed down, and I was also like really like manically happy that like I wasn't in constant pain anymore, and like for a year or two, like I like kind of just always experienced the mindfulness state. I was always extremely aware of like everything going on in my mind and everything going on with my body and everything going on in the outside world, like slowly detached to like exactly how they describe mindfulness. But I haven't meditated a day in my life. So, the mindfulness thing, it seems good. It seems like if you're not going to break your back or like something similar and experience something like this, like, because the benefits of it are great. Like just being aware of your thoughts and things around you, like not like, kind of like the video games are like the opposite of mindfulness. You don't have any thoughts like while you're doing. You like something might come in your brain like, oh, I gotta continue like playing. Like what about like how do I beat the next boss or something? But mindfulness is great for it. But I don't know how people could maybe they could like take a breath in the middle of a video game and be like, what am I doing? But I don't think that would work.
Yeah, I mean,
Possible.
yeah, I think in a sense it is slightly mindful. Obviously, it has like a negative, or it can have a negative impact in your life, and it certainly did yours. But in a sense, I feel like it's mindful in the fact that you're focused on something. So where in mindfulness, perhaps you might focus on the breath, or you might and like sort of let your thoughts go to not cloud the mind so much. When you're playing video games really intensely, you're just focusing on that video game. You're not thinking about your boss or work or what you're having for dinner. Your focus and attention is solely on one thing, which is quite mindful in a sense. But yeah, the behaviour pattern can kind of be a bit, yeah, sort of destructive.
I don't know. I feel so. I'm still, I haven't done the mindfulness meditation, so I don't really know what it takes. But I would think video games are the exact opposite. Video games are constantly like engaged in like something in your physical environment. It's not what I've read about like the detached, like observing what's going on in your mind and like not judging it and like letting it go.
Yeah, I get what
And
you
like
mean, yeah.
focusing back on the breath of the video game, you're like, you're in it and like you can't stop. Like that's like it's kind of like the thoughts rushing into your head that you can't, you try to like keep your head free of thoughts for like a minute, and like new ones about like, oh, my boss are gonna rush in, like new ones about like the video game are gonna rush in. So I for me, like video games are the exact opposite of mindfulness,
Yeah, I do
and
see
like
your
movies and stuff, all that.
yeah, I do see your point of view, and I do understand the benefits of that clarity, if you like, or the I don't know search for nothingness. But I feel like sometimes we can always get caught up in trying to not have any thoughts, and even if you don't have any thoughts, you think, oh, I'm not having any thoughts, and then it starts off the cycle of thoughts again, which is always an interesting part of the journey when anyone embarks on a journey through mindfulness. But just going back a bit to when you say you were addicted to video games, what bit of advice would you give to yourself, to your addicted video game self, if you like?
What advice would I give to my past self?
Yeah,
Basically, like everything I wrote in that book, just don't even start. Just like if you wanna play a video, like I don't know, like if you've never played video games before, don't even try it. If you haven't played for a month, like don't start that even one time. Like don't click it, like stare at a wall, like just suffer through boredom for a little bit. Like go to sleep for God's sake or something. But don't ever start them again. It's kind of similar for smoking too. Like if you quit smoking for a year or something, 2 years, like this happened to both my parents. They both smoke, and they quit. They quit for like a year or two, and they had one cigarette, and that's it. All the cravings come right back, and they're right back in it, and back to smoking like a pack a day within like a couple of days.
yeah, and I mean we are coming to the end of the podcast now. But is there anything you'd sort of like to add?
Anything else? I wanted to mention how video games are, like, why are they so pleasurable, for instance? Like, what makes them so exciting? And it's kind of that they hack into people's, like, goal-accomplishing system. Like, people's, like, flow state, like, which, like, feels really good, like, just how people experience well-being is based on, like, constantly working towards a goal and, like, successfully, like, achieving, like, small little goals in pursuit of like some bigger goal, which like bring you a lot of like joy to your life, which will like be really satisfying. And video games really hack into that. Like there are like tons of engineers and game designers working specifically to like make this like the video games feel like the correct state of life, like to feel like Elon Musk or something feels when he's like transforming the world and building like amazing things. And that's like video games, like they might not be so like pleasurable at all. Like people are willing to work in the video game. They're willing to do nothing but like rotely collect like coins, for like days, hours, days, just doing some rote repetitive tasks. It's not fun for them. They're doing it because that at least part, because they want to get to the next exciting thing. Just like you might work and like the work might be completely unpleasurable, but like, well, that'll get you to the next goal. Like writing like a section or something, or planning something out, or editing. Editing for me is, I hate editing my own work. It's extremely boring. But like I do it because like I know like, oh, there's a big reward at the end of this. I'll get something I want. And video games tap into it. You constantly want to know like what's gonna happen next. You want to get to the next level so you can see like, oh, like I'll face a boss and like see if you could beat him and like go to the next one, and like the final goal is beating the game. And people would go through all kinds of mindless like point collecting. Like there was like some RuneScape. RuneScape, it was like a massive multiplayer online game where it was like a role-playing character. You're a character. And so I spent like at least a week straight just like collecting like coins in the game, like doing like nothing exciting, just like buying. You could go around the world and you'd buy some stuff in one area of the world, and you'd physically walk like across this digital world to another area where you could sell it for like more. So I did that for like a week. It's not because it was pleasurable. I felt like I was working, like I was grinding, and like there was something exciting in the future because I'd like buy some new piece of armor which would allow me to get to the next level. And yeah, so the video games, they make them too good. Like nothing in life almost provides such a feeling of well-being. And like nothing, afterwards, like after you complete it, most people feel like this like guilty pleasure. Like they feel guilty of having wasted all their time rather than like successful. Like, oh, I finally achieved what I wanted to. But like while you're doing it, it very much feels like you're accomplishing something, like you're like living life as it's supposed to be. And very few things provide that except like for video, which kind of hack into our like goal accomplishing system in our minds, and that's why they're just so addictive.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, thanks very much, for coming on the show. And people will be able to click the link down below to be able to check out your book and check out more about you. But yeah, thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
As always, thanks for listening. And if during this episode anything came up for you or anything was triggered inside you, please do not hesitate to reach out to one of our expert trained counsellors at insideaddiction.co.uk, and we'll be able to provide you with a free consultation and a safe and confidential space to explore any of that stuff that's going on inside you, or that really came up for you as you were listening to the episode, because sometimes some of the content can be triggering and it can sort of bring stuff up in us that we need to explore. So feel free to reach out. And on that note, I wish you well on your journey to serenity.